Hey everybody, this is Zach from Scenic Sights and Bites. This is a YouTube channel about food, travel, adventure, all things exciting, all things delicious. And that includes wine. So this video actually is going to be a little bit about wine. I've been making wine for a number of years. Now I do make them from a kit, and there are some very good premium kits out there that produce some exceptional wines. So the one we're going to be talking about in this video, right from start to finish, is a Kenridge Classics Merlot. And I'm going to show you the kit that it comes in. Okay, so that's it there. So this box contains 10 liters of premium grape juice. And when we go through the process right up to bottling, you're going to see how we transform this into some very, very delicious wine, okay? So first steps first, anytime you're going to be making wine, and if you're thinking of doing this, just do it, because it's really not that hard as long as you take certain precautions, take your time, follow the instructions, and do it right. And you can save yourself money and enjoy very, very good wine, okay? Now, very big thing, sanitation, okay? Everything you're using has to be clean and sanitized. The slightest amount of contamination can ruin an entire batch of wine. Now these kits aren't cheap. So now we're in Canada here, so a box like that is about 80 bucks, and then all your supplies and everything else on top of that. So you've got to be very careful with what you're doing. As you can see over here, I've got a couple of pots I'm going to fill up with water and leave them on the counter overnight, and that'll help the chlorine to dissipate so that the amount that's left is going to be very, very minuscule, and it's not going to affect the taste. But the biggest thing, if you have too much chlorine, it affects the ability for the yeast to take hold and ferment. And so we don't want that to happen. So first steps first, leave the water overnight in containers that have been cleaned and sanitized. And then we're going to start with the main action tomorrow. So anytime I start winemaking, I actually like to get inspiration by drinking a really nice wine. Now, earlier this year, out in the spring, I was out in the Okanagan Valley in BC, and we stopped by quite a number of wineries. And one of the places we stopped by that had excellent wines, we went wine tasting at all these places, was the Gehringer Brothers, and we picked up a few bottles of this delicious wine. This is 2017 Pinot Noir, and I'm going to be enjoying a glass of that right now. I'm back, and boy oh boy, you know, I said I was going to enjoy some of that tasty wine. It was tasty. Now, I'm not a wine connoisseur, I'm more of a baking connoisseur, but I do like wine. So I'm going to read to you what it says on the back of this bottle, and then you can decide for yourself if this is something that you'd like to pick up the next time you're in the Okanagan Valley, or the next time you would like to travel to the Okanagan Valley. And believe me, it is a fantastic place to travel, and I will take you there one day. So on the back of the bottle, it says 2017 Pinot Noir. Now this is the BC Okanagan Valley. This is the Gehringer Brothers wine. Optimum Pinot Noir. The Great Burgundian Red. On the nose, heaps of ripe Okanagan plums and black cherries lift from the bouquet. On the palate, this full-bodied Pinot offers a tremendous concentration of jammy plum and berry fruit. Hints of chocolate and spice, complemented by soft, velvety tannins framed with French oak. I agree 100% with everything that said. I don't understand all of it, but I agree with it because this was just fantastic. So pick up a bottle or two for yourself. So how do we sanitize our winemaking supplies? Well, you do it using some pretty nasty chemicals. Now these pots that I'm putting my water in to sit overnight so it can help get rid of the chlorine, they've been washed previously from cooking and whatnot using regular sunlight soap. Well, you don't want to be using that when you're making wine. Unfortunately, you have to go with something a little bit stronger, and something that we can rinse clear away so that there's no residue, nothing affecting the taste of the wine. So a couple of products that I'm going to use. First of all, I'm going to wash them in SteriClean. Now that's this nasty pink stuff. And use that quite sparingly. It's a teaspoon of this diluted in 1 liter or 1 quart of warm water. After that, I'm going to give them a quick rinse, and then I'm going to soak them in a sterilizing solution. And that's this stuff here. It's potassium metasulfite. Now that stuff here, I use 3 tablespoons of sulfite in 4 liters of cool water. I also keep some pre-mixed in a spray bottle so I can spray the stuff down. Areas where it's harder to soak, you can spray it and just let it sit, and then I rinse it off afterwards. So I'll be doing that, rinsing away any of the residue, and then filling it up with water to sit overnight. And then we will move on from there once the water has been all taken care of. Hope to see you soon. So inside this wine kit that I bought, this is a 4-week wine kit, by the way, okay? So that doesn't mean it's going to taste good in 4 weeks, but that's about how long it takes to get to the bottling stage. And then you're going to want to let it sit after that to really let the flavors come through. So once you open up the kit, and I did this just to speed things up, you're going to see an instruction kit. Now, these instructions are often somewhat generic for the different types of wines that could be in the box, but they still work out pretty good. Now, in there, it tells you everything you need, everything you're going to require to make it, including equipment, as you can see. And then the other contents that you're going to find in the box, the first big one that you're going to notice is the 10 liters of premium grape juice, okay? This is not your variety that you're going to find on the shelf at a grocery store. These are premium grapes from a vineyard. And then you're going to find several different packets of yeast, different types of chemicals, oak and whatnot. And these are all used in various stages of making the wine. And so we're going to go through that. I'm going to sanitize the last couple of things that we need to get ready, and then I will show you how we mix it all up. Stay tuned. So what I've got here, I've got 2 cups of hot tap water. Now we're going to take that water and dump it into the bucket. And then we're going to add packet number 2, which is the bentonite. Bentonite's been mixed in with the 2 cups of hot water. You really got to mix it good. Now, bentonite is a clay type substance, so it's a real pain in the ass to mix. You want to use nice hot water, and mixing it actually in the primary fermenter tub isn't even really the easiest way. So mixing it like in a measuring cup with a couple of cups of hot water, that where you can really mix it up and then add it in here, is probably a little bit easier. I always remember that after I've done it, so learn from my mistake. Anyway, so now that that's mixed up as best as possible, I'm going to add the juice. Now this stuff will stain, so you want to pour it slow and carefully. And this juice, if you haven't already guessed, is quite concentrated. Okay, there we go. Put this out of the way. And now we add water to the 23 liter mark, which is right there. All right, the juice is at the 23 liter mark. Now we're going to give it a good stir. And you really want to mix this up good. One last step actually before we check the specific gravity with the hydrometer. The instructions say to add the oak contents if they're granulated, which these ones are. Oak chips would be added at a later stage if you had those. This is granulated oak, so I'm just going to put it in here, and that gets mixed in as well. All right, that should do it. Sink for now. All right, let's see how that looks. Okay, you can see there's a little bit floating on top, and it's going to kind of mix all throughout. The oak is going to come out. The oak is not actually going to end up in the bottles. All that sediment is going to end up coming out before the bottling stage, and I'll show you when the time comes how that actually takes place. So right now we're going to check the specific gravities. Now, this is a hydrometer here. You can see there's a couple of scales on it. Okay. This here is what we use with it. Now we fill that up with wine and put this in. Now you can, if you don't have a wine thief, you can just kind of scoop that in there. It's a little bit messy. Drop this in, you give it a spin so it doesn't stick to the sides, and you see where it sits at the level of the wine. I have a wine thief, and that makes life a lot easier. And that's this baby here. All right, let's try that. Perfect. So now it's floating. You can see that. And you give it a bit of a spin, and that just makes sure that it is not going to stick to the sides. You can see that's between the 80 and the 90, about halfway. It's actually about 2.5 lines. And now the scale is red going down. So at the very top in the red, that's 1.000. The next major mark down that you can't see right now because it's in the wine is 1.1. So right now this is reading 1.08. Each line is 2. We're about 2.5 lines. So 1.085 is what I'm going to be recording. Now that we've measured the specific gravity, we're going to take the hydrometer out. It's very fragile, so you want to be careful with it. Lay it down there. We're going to put the rest of the wine back in here so it can ferment with the rest of it. And we are going to add the yeast. So these kits work really well if you sprinkle the wine on top. As long as you've made sure that everything is sanitized really well before you use it, you're not going to have any bacteria taking over before the yeast takes effect. And this is going to take effect very quickly. Now there's two things you can do. You can either cover this with a loose fitting lid, like I have here, and this one came with my primary fermenter, just like that, and make sure you don't snap it down because this is going to fill up with gas, and that gas needs to escape. The other thing, there's another style of lid that actually has a spot for a little valve that can allow gas to escape but won't allow any air to go in. Now we use one of those on our secondary process when it's in the glass carboy. I don't have that for this. This lid works perfect. You just have to make sure that nothing sits on it so that the gas can escape. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to transport this to the place where I'm going to let it sit. It sits up there and it's at a height where I can actually siphon easily out of there into the glass carboy. So it sits about, I don't know, waist high or so. That'll make your life a lot easier if you don't have a pump. You just siphon it out. If you're on the ground, then you have to lift it up, and the problem with moving it is you can disturb the sediment, and the whole point is to not have any of that sediment going into the carboy. Okay, so I've carefully transported the wine to the storeroom where I let it sit. Now I'm using a workbench, a heavy-duty workbench to support the weight of it. If you're going to use a table or something along those lines, just make sure that it's strong enough to support the weight, because this is 23 liters of fluid we're dealing with here, and you would hate to have something happen, a leg come out, and have this pour all over the floor. Okay, so this is a nice sturdy steel frame. It works really good. The other thing you'll notice is this green belt that I have around it. That's a heat belt. Now, because my storeroom is a little bit cooler, this has to ferment at a temperature of between 20 and 25 degrees Celsius. And that says on here for my American friends, 68 to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can see that I do monitor the temperature quite closely. I have a thermometer on the side that I use. And right now it is sitting kind of between the 68 and 72, so right around the 70 mark. The heat belt's going to help maintain it at a temperature just slightly higher than that. If it gets too warm, then I'll raise the heat belt higher up in the tub, and then you won't have quite as much heat going into the liquid. If it's not quite warm enough, I lower the heat belt so it's closer to the bottom of the tub, and that allows more heat to get into it, basically. The instruction sheet, it's nice to have it handy. So I've got that posted right here on the wall. You can see I've recorded the date, the specific gravity. All my instructions are there. The label that came off my box, so I have that. That's for reference. It has the batch number and whatnot. So if there is an issue, you can trace all of that. Hey everybody, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join me in this first video that we have here for Scenic Sights and Bites. So stay tuned for future videos. Don't forget to click subscribe and click on that little bell so that you can be notified when future videos come out. This is Zach from Sights and Bites, signing off. Thank you.